Good morning, everyone, and happy 2017. Thank you for joining our College Bound Scholarship sign-up rates call. This call specifically is for our districts, schools, and non-profit partners. I know that weather is a little iffy around the state this morning, and so I appreciate those of you who are able to jump on this webinar and call with us. If you do have colleagues who are unable to attend, a reminder that we will post this webinar online and are always available for you to call or email us with questions. So thank you again for joining us. My name, as I said a minute ago, is Sarah Weiss. I'm the Associate Director of College Access and Support here at the Washington Student Achievement Council. WSAC is the state agency here in Washington that administers the College Bound Scholarship Program. I'm here with other College Bound team members, 4 of us, and a couple other folks from the agency to ensure that we can really get all of your questions answered as they come up. First and foremost, I really want to thank all of you for your commitment to the program and supporting our state students. Programs like this, really wouldn't be possible without your partnership and commitment and collaboration. And so thank you, and thank you for taking the time this morning. A few housekeeping notes before we jump in. As I said, we will be recording this webinar and we'll post it on the WSAC site for you to access at any point. In terms of questions that you may have that come up, please ask them using the questions box on the GoToWebinar panel that should show up for you. All mics will be muted, so we will only be taking questions through the questions box so we can make sure to get them answered for everyone in a timely fashion. Please feel free to ask them as you think of them, but we will answer them at the end of the webinar in case we end up addressing your questions and maybe compile some similar questions. We are monitoring the questions box throughout the webinar though, so if you do have any technical issues, please report them there as well. We will share responses that apply to everyone with everyone who's on the webinar, so feel free to ask those. If you do have a question about your district's data or the portal or anything really specific to your district, please contact us at collegebound@wsac.wa.gov, or you can ask it in the questions box and we will follow up with you as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we have an hour and a half or so scheduled for this webinar. Really, again, want to make sure that everyone has time to ask questions, and so we will go through and look forward to hearing your questions as we go. So in terms of what we're going to be covering today, packets with sign-up data for last year's 8th grade cohort, which was the 2020 graduation cohort, were mailed to district superintendents at the start of January. You can also, if you're at the school level or a nonprofit partner, you can also request a copy of the packet via just asking. Our College Bound staff will, at the end of the webinar, will show you how to do that if you haven't already. And today we'll be covering topics that were reported in those packets. We'll talk about the College Bound Scholarship eligibility, legislation, and sign-up process. We want to cover that because that really leads into how sign-up rates are calculated. We will also discuss the differences between 2 metrics for calculating sign-up rate progress. The differences between the historical sign-up rate calculation, which is referred to as our initial rate, and an updated methodology that we're able to provide with partnership from OSPI, referred to as our reconciled rate. Finally, we will take some time to outline proven practices, resources to assist with college-bound sign-up, both technical and training opportunities. And throughout the webinar, we will highlight the contents of the packet that was sent that focus on the specific content areas for your reference. So if you do have a packet in front of you, you can kind of go back and forth between our webinar screens and the packet, or if you request one at a later date, you can certainly reference that as well. So it's important before we jump into sign-up metrics, I think, to really ensure we're all on the same page with understanding what the college-bound scholarship is. Many of you, you're here, so you're familiar with it to some level, but I really wanted to just take a moment to highlight what it is. Here in Washington, it is our early commitment of state financial aid to eligible students who sign up in 7th or 8th grade. That "or" is really important, and you're going to hear me overemphasize the "or" throughout this webinar. Many times we all get the question, how much is a college-bound scholarship? Really, the more accurate question as we think about it is, what will be covered by state financial aid when I, a student, go to college? This is because the college-bound scholarship is really a commitment. That commitment that the average cost of tuition at public rates, so either a 2-year or 4-year, etc., some fees and a small book allowance will be covered by state financial aid. That commitment that those costs will be covered is at the heart of the college-bound scholarship. Now, the actual funds may come from several buckets of financial aid, state need grant, for example, or others, but those costs will be covered. The college-bound scholarship awards can be used currently at 66 2-year and 4-year public and private, technical, liberal arts institutions here in the state of Washington, so a really wide variety for folks to access post-secondary. Award amounts, again, are based on public rates, but those same amounts can be used at private institutions here in the state of Washington as well. So as we then jump into, looking at how a student applies for the college-bound scholarship, which then feeds into our rate discussion of, how many students are accessing this scholarship, the understanding the sign-up process in terms of the step-by-step process is important. So per college-bound legislation, the sign-up process requires 2 steps and eligibility checkpoints. So step 1, what we're mostly going to focus on today, is that initial sign-up. So those eligible students in 7th or 8th grade by June 30th of their 8th grade year. Eligible means that they meet income requirements or other eligibility, TANF, foster youth, etc., and certify that when they complete the application. So income levels are the same as free and reduced price lunch eligibility, but a student doesn't necessarily have to actually receive free and reduced price lunch to be eligible for the scholarship. So when we say meet income requirements, when the student and parent hard sign that application, they're verifying their income eligibility. Signature, again, that's required by legislation with the exception of foster youth who are auto-enrolled. So step 2, again, we're not going to focus so much on that today, but want to make sure that everyone's aware, is required when a student actually goes to access the funds when they graduate high school and enroll in a post-secondary institution. They must fulfill the college-bound pledge requirements, what they pledge to do when they sign up in middle school, graduate from a Washington high school or homeschool program, 2.0 or better, not be convicted of a felony. Students must also be income eligible at that point, so again, that checkpoint, as verified by completing the FAFSA or WSAC, which are our 2 financial aid applications that students do one or the other. And this income eligibility will be checked every year once in college. So again, and they have to apply and attend one of those 66 currently eligible institutions that I mentioned. So personally, I love catchphrases. They help me remember things. And so I'm hopeful that this will help you all as we jump into the sign-up rate discussion. So as I mentioned, the "or" is really important, right? So 7th or 8th grade, eligibility to apply via step 1 of the college-bound application process is inclusive of 2 years. A student needs to be eligible at any point during their 7th or 8th grade year to apply. For example, if they were eligible in 7th grade due to income but didn't apply, they could still apply in 8th grade regardless of if they were eligible via income in 8th grade. They were eligible during 7th grade, and there's that or. It's that eligible in 7th or 8th grade that they can be eligible and should apply. Again, this is just step 1 of the sign-up process. Income eligibility, again, is reviewed upon enrollment to college. Thus, statewide, data show that eligible populations, because it's inclusive of that 2-year application period, tend to grow 18 to 20% during a cohort 7th or 8th grade year. So as students become eligible who weren't eligible the first day of 7th grade, that overall population that may be eligible for the scholarship increases. So as a state, we continue to see growth in completed applications, which is fantastic. As of January this year, right now, we have over 250,000 applications on file for students from 7th grade up through college. However, though, knowing that our eligibility time frame spans 2 years, we know that there are many more eligible students out there. We'll come back to this. But I really wanted to just take a moment to just show the capacity of this program and how many students it has impacted. And this is really in large part due to all of your work with students and ensuring that they have access to this opportunity. So again, thanks for everything you do. Another important thing to just keep in mind is it's interesting to see the correlation between high school graduation rates and the college-bound application completion. College-bound students tend to graduate much higher than their low-income peers who did not sign up for the scholarship. So again, as we think about the benefit of signing up for the college-bound scholarship, obviously having that hope that those funds will be available, but also the impact that it can potentially have on high school graduation. All right, so now we're going to jump into the fun part, the rate calculations. And again, those of you who have a copy of your district's packet, you'll see in the reports that were sent by school and by district will show both an initial and a reconciled rate, as I mentioned. We're going to start with the initial sign-up rate, which is the one that you're all most likely familiar with. This has kind of been our historical metric. And I do have to say that I'm putting on a little bit of a math teacher hat here. So we can all, understand what our math teacher colleagues go through on a day-to-day basis. So what is the initial rate? Right? So again, our historical calculation that we've been able to provide in the past. It's calculated by showing the number of complete college-bound applications. So again, complete means that both the student and parent have signed and verified their income eligibility, right? So the number of complete college-bound applications divided by a snapshot of a cohort's fall 7th grade year free and reduced price eligibility count. So we've got the number of completed applications over that cohort's 7th grade free and reduced price lunch eligibility snapshot. Okay. So for example, for a 2020 cohort, the 8th graders that just finished, their completed applications, as you saw on the other slide and can see here, was just over 32,096. That cohort, the 2020 cohort, again, the 8th graders that finished last year, when they were 7th graders, 35,953 of those 7th graders were eligible for free and reduced price lunch at the start of their 7th grade year. So again, that's been the historical calculation, the initial rate. So dividing 32,096 over the 35,953 gives the sign-up rate in the realm of that we're all familiar with, an 89% rate, using that initial calculation with that 7th grade snapshot. So you're like, okay, we've had 10 years of college-bound signups and, looking at, trajectories and all this. Why think about it differently? Well, as we know, and as we discussed a minute ago, that eligibility to apply spans over 2 years. That or, because of the or, students can become eligible after that 7th grade snapshot that was used in the previous data calculations. Thus, we know that there are additional students missing the opportunity to sign up, that's step 1, for the college-bound scholarship. Free and reduced price lunch data is a moving target, right? And we all know that that's the case. And because of privacy restrictions, WSAC does not have access to real-time free and reduced price lunch data. That is at the school and district level. But USDA does have very strict guidelines around that. And so it's a moving target that we need to try and find a way to provide a more comprehensive view of eligibility. And so through partnership with OSPI, colleagues in the research department here have worked to build a methodology that accounts for the students who become eligible after that 7th grade snapshot, as well as one that accounts for student mobility. And we all know here in the College Bound program that this question has come up before, right? So you have that student left the school and there's not much that you can do with them in terms of trying to get them to complete the application, can't work with them anymore because they've left, etc. So really trying to understand how can we get a truer picture of who is actually eligible and where they are for the scholarship. So again, I'm going to put my math teacher hat back on as we look to this updated methodology in partnership with OSPI. So the reconciled rate is just that. It's something that we're able, again, through this partnership, to reconcile after a cohort finishes their 8th grade year. So how do we calculate this? So the number of complete college-bound applications based on where the student was enrolled at the end of their 8th grade year. Okay, that's a key distinction, is it's where they're enrolled at the end of their 8th grade year. If a student starts in a district, for example, but then transfers to another state, they're removed from both the numerator and denominator in this case. If they start in one school at a district, but end 8th grade in another, their application and count, if you will, for eligibility moves to where they are enrolled at the end of their 8th grade year. Thus, you can see a similar number of completed applications for the 2020 cohort to what we saw with the initial rate. In this case, using this reconciled methodology, we had 30,140 completed applications that were enrolled in a Washington public school at the end of their 8th grade. So you may ask, well, what happened to those, just under 2,000, not 200, 2,000 students who had a completed application in the initial calculation but are not included here? Well, as we know, students transfer out of state, students may become homeschooled, students may go to a private school, etc. So, but we don't see a huge difference in the grand scheme of this because, as we know, most students do, the vast majority will stay at a public school here in the state of Washington. However, when we jump to how we're measuring the eligibility count, you will see a fairly substantial increase. And again, this is because it's including all of those that became eligible after that initial 7th grade snapshot. So in this case, for 2020's cohort, again, the 8th graders who just finished last year, if we look at anyone who became eligible 7th or, I'm expecting you all to be, waiting on my last word every time I say or, but 7th or 8th grade and are enrolled in an 8th grade Washington public school is 42,436. So as you can see, that grew pretty substantially from the 35,000 or so when we just looked at the 7th grade snapshot. Thus, when we're trying to understand, who actually completed an application, who was eligible at any point during that 7th or 8th grade, we see that the true review of sign-up statewide is about 71% for the 2020 cohort. We do see similar trends with past cohorts using this methodology, which makes sense, right? Because we saw on that previous slide that completed applications continue to go up. But to put it simply, there are just more eligible students when you account for the fact that they can enter eligibility at any point during 7th or 8th grade. So for those of you who have a district or school packet, these documents should look familiar. And for those of you who don't quite yet, when you request one, we'll be happy to send you one. These are 2 examples of the documents included in the district packets, and I wanted to just highlight these specifically because I didn't want you all to feel like you had to necessarily go back and listen to my webinar again, though I'd be completely honored if you did, to get this information and be able to reference it frequently. The document on the left is an infographic that outlines what we just talked about regarding methodology and eligibility. So outlining the differences in the calculation and how and why that reconciled rate really does give a truer picture of the student eligibility. And then the second over on the right is the glossary that you can use as a reference when looking at your school and or district's data. So the tables have a lot of columns in them. We know that, and we wanted to make sure that you understood what each number, where it's coming from, and what it really means. So these are 2 items that were in those district packets and can be a good reference point for you as well. So now the question becomes, okay, great, Sarah's partially a math teacher now, we have an understanding of, the data and how it all works, but what does it mean? What do we do now? How can we as a state and our schools and our districts, all of us, how can we ensure that as many eligible students as possible have access to this opportunity? So again, plain and simple, it does mean that as a state we have larger populations of students who have signed up for College Bound. We continue to see those applications increase. However, there again are more students out there. And so how can we focus on making sure that those students apply who are eligible in 7th or 8th grade? So we're going to talk for a few moments about some best practices and how to maximize sign-ups, and who doesn't love puppies on a cold winter morning. So we're going to share a little bit with you and talk about some of these resources as well. The first one that I want to mention is via the online portal through the Washington Student Achievement Council. College Bound sign-up work can be done via this portal in the middle school toolbox. Hopefully all of those of you who work with middle school sign-up or those in your district have access to it. If you don't, please let us know. Email us and we will get you set up right away. The benefit of this is that districts or schools can upload eligible students. Again, you have access to the student information. WSAC, we do not. So when you upload, thus it starts applications for these students. You can then print letters and signature page that students and parents need to sign to verify their eligibility directly from the toolbox. These letters will be pre-populated with what you import, and it happens pretty much instantly. And so you upload, all of your potentially eligible students. The next minute you can download those letters that are pre-populated. No one has to decipher middle school handwriting. You can make sure that all that information is directly pre-populated from your school's database. And then get the student and parents to sign and verify eligibility and then return it to us here at the program. We recommend frequent monitoring of your eligible students, not just uploading one time. As we said again, a few minutes ago, eligibility does grow, right, over the 7th or 8th grade year. And so if you're just uploading once in October of that 7th grade year, you're not going to include all those students who additionally become eligible. So frequent monitoring of eligible student populations is recommended. For larger districts and larger schools, the upload is a great way to do this. If you have a small list or are at a smaller school, or you're meeting with a student one-on-one when they newly enroll or newly become eligible, and you want to enter them then and there without doing an upload, you can easily do so. As a counselor, you can have the student do it themselves, or parents with the online application, which can be found directly on the College Bound website. Takes under a minute, pretty darn fast. And again, their info will automatically populate your middle school toolbox. So then you can just jump in there, print the pre-populated letter and signature page for them. And the entry via the upload or the online app is also beneficial in that it gets the student into the database, into all of the WSAC data. So you can track their completion. You can see if they've returned a letter to WSAC, or you can see what's been sent to them. And that's also, we at the program know that they've started an application, and especially as they get close to the end of their eligibility clock towards the summer of that 8th grade year, we can follow up with them as well. So again, in terms of referencing what materials were sent out in that packet, the flyer over on the right was in the district packets, outlines this process that we just kind of went over. So if you have questions about it or need an account to the middle school toolbox through the WSAC portal, please just let us know. Give us an email and we'll be sure to get you set up. Also in your packet is a flyer about our Washington College Access Network here in the state, which include 8 regionally based college-bound officers who can assist you or your district with sign-up strategy, resources, and building capacity for this work at the school level. WACAN, College Access Network, is a statewide nonprofit partner of the College Bound Scholarship and WSAC and supported by the College Success Foundation. I encourage you, to reach out to your regional officer if you haven't already. As I said, there are 8 throughout the state, and you can find them on their website if you don't know who your officer is. But a great opportunity, again, to get some in-person help in your school. A reminder that you can also order free college-bound materials, download resources and templates for your use at collegebound.wa.gov. Many of these resources are available in multiple languages. So once you're on the website, if you just go to the resources for counselors section, you can download those or request free professionally printed materials to be mailed to you as well. So before we jump into some questions, I wanted to be sure to put my contact information. Again, Sarah Weiss, Weiss is nice, hopefully you can remember that as well. If you have questions about your data or College Bound in general, please always feel free to reach out. If you want a copy of your district's packet or need another one, please email us at the College Bound address so we can be sure to get you that quickly. And now we're going to review questions and take a look at some of those and answer them as needed. All right, so the first question that we have, I'm going to just share with everyone here, is from Anissa Parks, who's asking, saying that she notices a large amount of students that she approaches for college-bound sign-up from her FERPL list, free and reduced price lunch eligible list, are marked as reduced instead of free. Then they return the application and mark that they're not eligible. The question is there a discrepancy from the income guidelines on the application and the income rate that would qualify families as for reduced lunch? So I wonder if students so once a student applies for free and reduced price lunch, they're eligible for that academic year. And so I wonder perhaps if there's folks who are thinking, oh, because we do have annual and monthly and weekly income levels on there, if they're thinking, oh, well, for right now, we're not eligible, but making sure that they were at some point. And so we use basically the base level income guidelines from USDA. And so what I would encourage you, Anissa, and others who may come up with this question would be to really encourage folks to think at any point during 7th or 8th grade again, are they at that income level? And I would ask, if you continue to see that you have, issues with that, please feel free to reach out to us. We can certainly problem solve at a school by school level. And I do see that these slides available now or only when the webinar gets posted. We will post a copy of the recorded webinar probably within the next day or so. We'll also put a copy of the slides. If you need it sooner than that, if you wanted to show a colleague, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to send it your way, but it should be both should be posted online within the next day and a half or so. Okay, so a great question here from Amanda Lynn Rubio. When you repeatedly do the upload and pull your FERPL list, does it duplicate students, or does the toolbox know to create an MIL for only newly eligible students? And so when you upload using the file structure that's in the portal, it'll require you to do SSID and some other fields. And so that will match to a current application in the portal. And so basically what it does is it just matches and then won't create a new record for them. Yeah, so it matches last name, SSID, and date of birth. And so those are going to be important fields to include. And so it'll, again, match to them and won't duplicate a new record. You can always print more MILs for a student, regardless of how many times they've necessarily been uploaded. All right, so moving on here to the next questions. Okay, so question here more kind of on the actual enrollment side in terms of how much funds are students receiving from AJ Vaughn. Thank you for your question. Are college-bound students receiving aid that they would not otherwise qualify for simply because of their FAFSA or WSAC information? To say it differently, how much aid, if any, are students receiving just because they have signed up for college-bound? And so so again, I think that goes back to the point of what the college-bound scholarship commitment covers. It covers that tuition, some fees, again at the public rates, a small book allowance, that amount at the different colleges. And so those costs will be covered by state financial aid. And so if a student didn't have the college-bound scholarship, they might still be eligible and receive, let's say, a full state need grant, but that isn't necessarily tied specifically to those costs. And so what we frequently will see are students who have a college-bound scholarship, they have that commitment, they receive a full state need grant, but to ensure that, again, those costs, that commitment is met, they might have an additional award that comes from the college-bound pool that meets that full commitment. So I guess if I'm understanding your question correctly, the answer is yes. It's because it's, again, tied to ensuring that those costs are met by the college-bound scholarship commitment. And so I do have a comment here that I understand that it's not really a question, but something I definitely want to address, that, folks work, really hard to get college-bound numbers, at 100% without using inappropriate means, signing up the entire grade, etc., which I just want to point out that that's fantastic that you don't do that, because then, as students aren't, thinking they have something when they might not really be eligible. And then based on the data that you're saying you have at the district, you have over 100%, and then your superintendent goes to a meeting or a training and the rates look different, and you look perhaps inferior, is what the question is, to other schools, or if we aren't doing the best we can. I totally understand that that's frustrating. I think we're all, though, to be completely honest, in that boat at the state level at this point, in that there are more eligible students out there than we thought, right? I mean, that we were able to measure before. And now we're able to actually see that there are additional students coming into eligibility through 7th and 8th grade that they could have or should have the opportunity to apply for the scholarship, but didn't. And so, again, our FERPL, free and reduced price lunch eligibility counts, which are, again, the denominators that these rates come from, are provided by the free and reduced price lunch eligibility counts. And, as I said, there are statewide more students that are eligible when you look at everyone who was eligible during the time that they could have applied. And so that's I think your point. I completely understand that it's frustrating that you think you've got everyone, and that's, I guess I would say, why we at the state level are moving towards trying to really, the next evolution is to really move towards and ensure that we're being as inclusive as possible when we look at eligibility and who's eligible. So understand that it's frustrating. I think that, again, that your point goes right to the heart of why we're shifting as a state to looking at an additional metric, and we're all in the same boat in terms of having more eligible students as we look at those two application years. So I've got a question here that says, what percentage of kids who sign up for College Bound have actually ended up accessing the scholarship? How well is it working? I'm going to turn it over to Lexi Shankster, who's our Director of Research, to jump into that.
Hello. So if we look at the first year of program enrollments, which was 2012-13, roughly 70% of our graduating CBS scholars enrolled in a post-secondary institution that was eligible to receive state need grant and also college-bound scholarship funds. That has dropped to about 53% roughly. Because it's college-bound, there are many ways to calculate every rate. But roughly half of the students that we are graduating from high school are going on to enroll in post-secondary, which, when you compare that to the statewide rate, which is around 61 to 63% if you look at OSBI's, or if you look at ERDC's, high school feedback report. So it's fairly comparable, which is outstanding for a low-income population. So again, great work. I think the next next big push will be to apply just as much effort in getting these students to enroll in post-secondary as we have to get them signed up. We have done such, you all have done such a great job of getting these sign-up numbers up. Even with this change in rates, we are seeing that numerator, the complete applications, just go up year over year, which has been fantastic. So now we need to get the number of students that then continue on into post-secondary up as well. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, so moving on to the next question here. Will the initial rate still be used moving forward? No, not in terms of measuring district eligibility and progress towards benchmarks and things like that. Because for two reasons that actually are just one. So one reason is that it's misleading. It's either misleading as a hey, we've got more students signed up than eligible, great. But really that eligibility count is larger than the initial rate captures. And so while not misleading necessarily in a detrimental way to trying to benchmark, but in terms of the goal of the program, which is to ensure that every eligible kid has access to the opportunity, it's not the best metric to be able to measure that. And so what we'll be doing moving forward in our district packets is really focusing on completed application counts, benchmarking of those, as well as the reconciled rate metric, which is again available after a cohort finishes their 8th grade year. And so then you're like, well, okay, so how can I do this work if I won't know who's eligible till it's too late for them to apply? Well, again, you at the district and school levels have access to real-time eligibility data, whereas we at the state level do not. And so in April of this year, typically, we've always sent out kind of updates and benchmarking reports to schools and districts and reminders about resources as you head into the end of that cohort's 8th grade year. We will continue to do that. We will be sending packets, as I said, in April of this year. However, we will be focusing on completed app comparisons, not necessarily district to district or school to school, but year to year within a school. And then encouraging you to understand your low-income populations. Is it about the same every year? Did we have a big increase? Did we have a big decrease? And that, again, goes to the heart of why that frequent monitoring is so important. So again, back to the initial question about initial rate, no pun intended there, that we will really, again, be focusing on that reconciled rate and completed application numbers, not pulling the initial sign-up rate, again, in trying to give everyone who's working with the College Bound program metrics that are more accurate and just more helpful in ensuring that every student has access to the opportunity. So I don't see any more questions on our question box right now, but I'm going to just do a few wrap-up notes and then give you all an opportunity to ask any additional questions that you may have. So again, keep an eye out for those district packets in April. It'll be a similar format to this year in that they'll be sent to the district level and then a note out to our College Bound listserv for you to request a copy of your packet if you'd like. Speaking of listserv, our College Bound listserv is a great way to stay up to date with best practices, resources, again, be notified when things go out to districts. You can access that, again, via that Resources for Counselors page on the website, or email us if you'd like to get added. We can certainly help you with that. We send out quick messages about once every other week, so it hopefully isn't too overwhelming, but want to be able to give you some resources and updates. There are also student listservs as well for folks in high school, so 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So if you have students who are wanting information about the scholarship, you can do that as well. Within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we are finalizing our College Bound Gold Star Awards, and we'll be recognizing both at the district and school level, so keep an eye out for those. We'll be mailing those and also announcing them on our website and through the listserv. And finally, I just want to say thank you again so much to everyone for your commitment to the program and to our students, and for going through all of the data and understanding that we all realize here at the council that there's a lot of work that goes into ensuring that your students have access, and we really appreciate the partnership and collaboration. So again, I don't see any other questions on the panel here. So without any further questions, we'll end the webinar. Again, it will be posted on our WSAC site within the next day, day and a half. If you, again, need access to the PowerPoint slides before then, because we'll also post those, please feel free to just email me. Again, Sarah Weiss is nice. You can see my email address up there, and we'll get you a copy. Thanks so much, and look forward to connecting in the future.